And still on consumer news, South Africa's retail sales grew by 4.1% year-on-year in December. This is above expectations. Retail sales expanded by a revised 3.8% in November. However, on a month-on-month basis, sales were down 0.9%. They rose by 3.8% in the 3 months to December, compared with the same period in the previous year. Well, I'm joined now by Mike Schussler. He's from economist.co.za to help us unpack what all this data means. Thanks for joining us, Mike.
Pleasure.
Good stuff. Now, the market was expecting a print of 6%, but clearly inflation is leaping way ahead. What were the main drivers behind the number?
Well, absolutely food inflation. There wasn't, again, a big decrease in the petrol prices that we saw early last year. So this is a rebalancing, and we all knew inflation was going to be higher in the first quarter. But the rate that it's higher is very worrisome. Now, 0.2% doesn't sound like much, but if carried forward, it looks like our average inflation rate could be about 7.5% this year, whereas the inflation that the Reserve Bank expected in the January one is 6.8%, and they'd already moved that higher. And it looks like towards the end of the year, we would cross the 8% mark. So this is really, really of concern for not just analysts, but consumers out there. And the chances of interest rates going up are going to be high. The fact that the wage bill in government is linked to the inflation rate means that it's going to be very hard to see how we bring the deficit down. So already that is going to influence South Africa quite badly, ultimately.
Now, when we look at food inflation, that's of particular concern, as you mentioned, because, you know, when staple prices go up, it affects the poor in particular. How badly do you expect that situation to pan out through the year?
It's going to be very bad this year. The drought is certainly having a big impact. I think if we look at the whole region, we've been told we're going to have to import 9 million tons of soft commodities. That's not just maize, but if you look at the white maize price by December, it had increased by 130% on the market. The full 130% doesn't come through to consumers, but it says to me that a 40–50% increase is very likely in that staple food. The people at the bottom of the pyramid, the poorest of the poor really in South Africa, they're not the people working, they're the people receiving social grants. They are really going to be spending their money just on food this year, I think. It's really not looking good for them. And it's really not looking good at our logistics sector is going to struggle to bring in those imports. So it's a whole host of things that are playing out. And quite frankly, those of us who are lucky to have jobs will also feel the pain, but not as much as those that do not have jobs.
Like I said in the introductory remarks, it does look as though we're going to have more inflation coming. If you think about the possibility of a further electricity hike, also fuel levy increases that we anticipate the finance minister will whack us with in the budget. So what's the outlook for inflation?
Well, the outlook is definitely very negative. We think that much of the food inflation is still got to come through, specifically February for the fruit and veggies, we think, is because that's where that's hitting in March. Towards the end of the year, the meat prices are going to start because now they're culling a lot of their animals. It's going to take them a while to get back. Some of the meat prices may never come back, but it might last for about 4 years. We have meat shortages in South Africa. So this is a really, really bad situation vis-a-vis the food. You yourself have mentioned the budget next week will give us an idea what the minister's going to charge us extra for petrol. There may even be a VAT increase. I doubt it, though, because I think these inflation numbers are just too high to have a VAT increase on. And ultimately, I think we're looking at a down the barrel of the gun for the next 18 months on the inflation side. I don't think we're going to come meaningfully back into target for the next 18 months. And that means interest rates cannot go lower.
Okay, so there's inflation on the one side, interest rates on the other. Now, we know that external factors also affect what's happened in South Africa. And in terms of monetary policy, do you think the fact that the US Fed seems to be slowing down on its rate hiking cycle, do you think that will give our Reserve Bank some legroom?
Yes, I think they have time to breathe. And because they put a 50 basis point hike right up front, they may only have to give us another 25 or maybe another 50 in total. But ultimately, we will still see at least one interest rate hike. But I think on these inflation numbers, it's more likely to be 2 or more. But ultimately, I think the fact is that monetary policy overseas is loosening up again, we may follow suit, but it won't mean for us ultimately interest rates coming down, because you're going to look at real rates. And at the moment, you know, the person in the bank is going to get just over 6%. Inflation is just over 6%. So already we had 0% real rates ultimately. And it's very, very likely, as I said, that inflation will peak beyond the 8% level, giving us 7.5% average for the year. And I don't think under those circumstances the Reserve Bank is not going to increase rates, at least slightly. But we will be looking at negative returns for savers. That's not very good for pensioners normally. And that certainly is going to have an impact in that area as well. And I think people that have debt need to understand that this is not going away quickly. We are going to pay more for our vehicles, our furniture, and our houses.
Very quickly, Mike, very contradictory information in terms of the retail sales, up 4.1% in December. I guess that's because of the Christmas season, but we're always hearing that the consumer's under pressure. No,
the consumer is not as much under pressure as people have been telling you. If you look at the retail sales, they've been doing well. Yes, the durable goods, the furniture and the cars have not been doing well. But if you look at anything from retail, food consumption, fast foods, all those things are climbing above the rate of inflation because people are still getting above inflation increases. So they have that money to spend there despite huge tax increases and the like. So yes, the cars aren't selling. Yes, furniture isn't selling and a few other durable items, but people are still shopping.
All right. Well, we'll leave it there. I think the advice should be people should stop shopping. Thanks very much, Mike.
Slow down.
That was Mike Schussler. He's MD at economist.co.za.